Coin did not kill Prim. Neither did Snow or Gale. Let's go over a controversial theory and tell me what you think down below. As much as we all rooted for Prim's survival, after all, saving Prim was the whole reason Katniss volunteered for the Hunger Games, there is someone in the story who believed that killing Katniss's sister was necessary to free Panem, so they killed her on purpose. First, let me explain why I dismiss both Coin and Snow as the potential killer. Snow was highly unlikely to be the killer. Boggs told Katniss that most of the Capitol's air fleet was destroyed, and one of the cameramen in Katniss's crew mentions that the footage the Capitol showed of them running from the Capitol's pods never contained any aerial footage, meaning that they didn't have hovercrafts. If Snow had working planes, he probably would have flown the coop and saved his skin. Plus, how would Snow have orchestrated the timing of when 13's medics would arrive? How would he have known that underaged Prim would be there? And Snow had absolutely no reason to kill a bunch of Capitol children. It would only set the Capitol further against him, especially after Finnick aired his dirty laundry. Most fans think that Coin killed Prim in an effort to earn Katniss's loyalty and gain the presidency, with the majority supporting her because they support the Mockingjay. But if Coin set up Prim's assassination to manipulate Katniss, then there's a couple of problems here. Wouldn't Coin have put Katniss's mother in the pen as well? She was a gifted healer too. She would have been qualified to enter the pen and help the kids after the initial bombing. If Coin had killed both Katniss's sister and mother, it would have ensured that Katniss hated Snow even more and increased the chances that Katniss would have become loyal to her. But the person who really planned Prim's death had a plan, and killing Mrs. Everdeen wasn't required. If Coin had killed Prim, wouldn't she have done everything in her power to make it impossible for Katniss and Snow to talk after the Capitol fell? To make it impossible for Katniss to realize that she was the one who killed Prim? Snow wasn't locked away in a dungeon or a prison. He was in his rose garden. Katniss thinks that it's about setting the precedent that presidents get special treatment. But Katniss, like any of us trying to understand a situation that we don't fully comprehend, can be wrong. Coin would have told the guards overseeing the rose garden, nobody goes in, especially not Katniss, not without my permission. Paler's authority alone would not have been enough to let Katniss in, because Coin would have made it clear that nobody could authorize visitors without Coin's explicit permission. Coin would have made it impossible for Katniss to talk to Snow after seizing the Capitol, and it would have taken so much longer before Katniss found out the truth, if she ever did. Coin would have had Katniss right where she wanted her. So if Coin did plan the bombing, she got lazy at the end. But I don't think Coin was lazy. It wasn't a coincidence that Katniss found Snow. After all the trauma that Katniss associates with the smell of roses, she's drawn to the smell of roses like moth to a flame. In the books, when Katniss smells a rose when she's not expecting it, she follows the smell to find the rose. The rose garden reeked of roses, so Katniss went there and found Snow, and heard that he hadn't planned the bombing. And there, Snow gives us a clue about Plutarch, which leads us down the Plutarch Heavensbee rabbit hole. Plutarch really controlled the war, more than most people realized. Heavensbee might sound like a name indicating he's a good person, but it could also mean someone who's working from a higher perspective, and that's exactly what we see. He'd been working undercover in the Capitol for years. Even when he was a game maker, he was undercover. He was the one who fell in the punch when Katniss shot the arrow at the apple in her first games. He masterminded the rebel breakout, found war and history fascinating, and he's detached during war. He sees the long game way more than anyone else in the story. Not many people have the authority to send Prim into combat since she was underage. Coin, maybe Boggs before he died, and Plutarch. The bombing that killed Prim aired live. Snow tells Katniss, "You can see Plutarch's hand in that." Snow also tells Katniss, "I don't think he was gunning for your sister, but these things do happen." I think that's exactly what Plutarch was doing. I think Plutarch was gunning for Katniss's sister. The rebel army had driven away the children's parents before the explosions happened, and the plan was based on the trap that Gale and Beatty had designed to kill the children's parents when they rushed to the aid of the children. But it wasn't the parents who were allowed to go in, it was the rebel medics. Whoever devised this plan wanted the medics to die. What other medics could they have been gunning for? The only medic noteworthy of killing in the story would be Prim. She was it. She was the only one. So, if Coin didn't kill Prim, based on our earlier argument, and Boggs is dead, that leaves Plutarch as the only person left who could have arranged Prim at the bombing. It also wasn't a coincidence that Plutarch used Gale's trap. More on that soon. Plutarch had all the tools he needed to mastermind the events that we witnessed. He managed airspace. When Katniss returned to 12 at the beginning of Mockingjay, Plutarch told the pilot his airspace was clear. Plutarch oversaw them when they went to District 8. Speaking of which, was it a coincidence that 8's bombing happened right after Katniss and her team arrived? Coin had said that 8 had been bombed that morning, but it seemed to have stopped. But once Katniss and her crew show up, another bombing. Coincidence? I think not. Plutarch was likely watching their airspace. He had communications with them while they were on the ground, and he had contacts in the capital who were loyal to him. Haymitch tells Katniss about these contacts when 13 sent troops to the capital to rescue Peeta and the other victors. Plutarch could have revealed to the capital that Katniss was in 8, or he could have told them that there was still a hospital there that could be bombed, because that would have made for a great propo. One of Plutarch's capital contacts could have taken that info from Plutarch and passed it along higher up the chain in the capital to manipulate them to send a bomber so that Plutarch could get his propo without anyone realizing that that was what Plutarch wanted. And getting a great propo out of 8's bombing is exactly what happened. Plutarch believed that a good propo can speed along the war. He doesn't care who dies as long as the war is won. Plutarch was so nonchalant about war, he never mourned anyone's death. He was so detached from the pain and suffering, it didn't matter to him who died. We see this over and over again. When 20 rebels are blown up, Peeta says, "I bet it's killing Plutarch not to be in the control room on this one." During the We Remember spots, people are talking about how sad Finnick's are because Finnick knew so many people who had died in 4. But Plutarch doesn't have any sense of grief or empathy. He just says that's why the spots are so effective, because they're straight from the heart, and that Coin could not be more pleased. When Katniss is worried about Peeta suffering in the capital as a hostage, Plutarch downgrades the situation and reminds Katniss that others will be watching her. When the capital showed Peeta looking worse on TV, Plutarch kept it from her, not realizing that she'd already seen it. Plutarch believed that the rebellion turned around because of Katniss and her Mockingjay suit airing on TV, and his final words to her before she invades the capital are, "Put on a good show." This whole thing is a show to him. Plutarch doesn't care about getting credit, which is on purpose. More on this in a few. Katniss even says that Plutarch seems to have no need to share in the credit, that he just wants the airtime assault to work. Once he wins, that's when Plutarch will take his bow and want his reward. Plutarch had to make sure that both the capital and 13 would fall so that his dream could be realized. The birth of a republic, the power going to the people. What did Plutarch have to gain by killing Prim? A whole lot. By killing Prim, Plutarch secured the victory. Coin and 13 have taken down the capital, and once Katniss suspects Coin killed Prim, Katniss will take down Coin. Both the capital and 13 have fallen, and Plutarch has the blank slate that he needs to start his republic. By killing Prim, and therefore getting Katniss to kill Coin as a result, Plutarch has secured Katniss's exile. If she isn't executed, she would be taken to 12 to live out the rest of her days. Remember that in the books, Katniss was sent back to 12. She didn't necessarily choose it. In 12, Katniss was kept far away from the capital and the newly elected officials. The beginning of the new Panem would necessitate new rules and laws, new ways of living and governing, and Katniss might argue against Plutarch's vision if she was near those new officials. Plutarch likely argued for Katniss to be forgiven for Coin's execution because he wants to keep Katniss alive and accessible. He tells her at the the end of Mockingjay that should another war begin, they could find a role for her, and he laughs. If tensions rise or if people get heated again over the Hunger Games or other injustices that had happened in Panem's past, he can call Katniss out of 12 and have her bring back the peace. But he couldn't do that if Prim had lived. If Plutarch ever wanted to use Katniss again, Prim would have stood against him and told him to find someone else. Katniss had done her time. Remember that Prim had stood against Plutarch earlier in the story. Plutarch had to get Prim out of the way in case he needed to use Katniss again, and he had to make it look like someone else did it. After the war, Katniss's mother goes to 4, but she and Katniss aren't necessarily close. While Coin likely would have put Katniss's mother beside Prim in the pen for the explosion, Plutarch would not. While Plutarch never seems bothered by anyone's death, he also doesn't kill people needlessly. Plutarch knew that Mrs. Everdeen wasn't a threat to his plans, that she wouldn't stop him from trying to use Katniss in the future, especially if she was going to live far away from Katniss. Peeta would not stop Plutarch either. Peeta could be manipulated into fighting to keep Panem free should another war happen, or Peeta could be manipulated into allowing Katniss to fight again. There were only 2 people who would have protected Katniss from Plutarch, Prim and Gale. But Plutarch didn't want to kill Gale. He was too crucial for war efforts and security. So Gale got a fancy job in District 2 after the war was over. And here is why Plutarch used Gale's trap to kill Prim. By using Gale's trap to murder Katniss's sister, Plutarch destroyed. He completely severed the bond between Gale and Katniss, rendering Gale unable to protect Katniss in the future. Moves and countermoves. Yeah, I know, that's from the movies, not the books, but we'll move on. In Plutarch's mind, Prim had to die for 3 reasons. 1, guaranteeing that Katniss would kill Coin. 2, ensuring that Prim would not be able to protect Katniss from Plutarch. And 3, to destroy Katniss's relationship with Gale so that he could not protect her either. It was all about freeing Panem and making sure that Katniss would stay available to ensure that Panem would remain free. I suspect that Plutarch does not take credit for his ideas until things are over because it keeps him safer. Let everyone think that plans came from Coin or Snow or other powerful leaders, because if he allows prideful leaders to take credit for his ideas, they're the ones who take the fall when other powerful people strike back. By not taking credit, Plutarch remains safer, and others are less suspicious of what Plutarch is really doing and planning, what his goals really are. Once I saw Plutarch from this perspective, so much more of the story made sense. And after reading Sunrise on the Reaping, I didn't find any details that contradicted this theory. What do you think? Did Plutarch play a bigger role than most people realized? Or do you think that Coin devised the whole thing and she just didn't think to add Katniss's mother to the explosion and she didn't bother ensuring that Snow and Katniss wouldn't talk again? Or do you think Snow did it and somehow knew that an underage Prim would be there? Let me know in the comments. I love you all and keep weaving the threads of your stories.